welcome. I'm happy to see all of you here today. Many of us had a late night last night at our Circus Spectacular, our kickoff event for our stewardship campaign. We had a lot of fun, maybe even if, or maybe because, we put so much work into it. It took many people donating their time, their talent, and their money to have such an event. But of course, it takes all three of those to do anything worthwhile. And why do we do it? Why are so many so generous? WisdomCommon.org states that generosity is freely sharing what you have with others, be it money, help, or time, when it is needed. At Westside, we refer to these as the 3 T's: time, talent, and treasure. The concept of generosity is not a new one, but we seem to be learning new things about it and about ourselves all the time. It is in our science, our religions, and our cultures around the world. For example, in the 1990 sitcom Friends, Joey and Phoebe get into an argument about generosity and altruism. Joey feels there is no such thing as altruism. No one does anything because they want to help others. The motivation to be generous is solely to make oneself feel good. Phoebe tries the entire episode to prove him wrong, giving to others as they encounter. But at every turn, Joey points out that now she feels good about herself, so it doesn't count. Finally, Joey is in a telethon, and Phoebe calls into his phone. She makes a large donation, which she can only afford if she works extra hours. She points out that now she feels awful, so it must be a generous and altruistic thing to do. Suddenly, it's announced that with her donation, Joey passes some set level of donations received, and he gets paid an extra $1,000. Phoebe is so happy for him, she jumps up and down clapping before she stops and says, "Oh, crap." It is true that being generous to others makes one feel good, and this can be a motivation to give. The question of altruism is really irrelevant, as I hope to show you today. We all benefit from generosity. This past December, the Huffington Post reported many different studies on generosity that expounded on the benefits to those who give more. People who tend to give more had lower levels of the stress hormone cortisol. This hormone was higher in those who kept more money for themselves, and chronically high levels of stress have been linked to a number of different health problems. Perhaps related to this, researchers at the University of Buffalo found a link between giving, whether it was time, talent, or treasure, and having a lower risk of an early death. Dr. Poulin, an associate professor there, suggested generosity might buffer the association between stress and mortality. Other studies have shown that giving actually promotes one's mental health and happiness. Volunteering has been linked to decreased depression, workplace productivity and commitment, and life satisfaction. In fact, in 2010, researchers at the Harvard Business School found that across cultures, people are happiest when giving. The study states, this research provides the first support for a possible psychological universal. Human beings around the world derive emotional benefits from using their financial resources to help others. They term this pro-social spending. Analyzing survey data from 136 countries, we show that pro-social spending is consistently associated with greater happiness. Now, this goes against traditional economic thought, where self-interest is our happiness motivator. They suggest that generosity is in our nature, even in different cultures and economies, perhaps being a universal phenomenon. It is possible that generosity has helped humans evolve and survive in groups. This is proven out by a study from the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences. Researchers there took an old exercise, the prisoner's dilemma, and changed it somewhat. Now, the original exercise took 2 people and gave them a choice. If they both denied a crime they were accused of, they both got a short prison sentence. If they both confessed to the crime, they both got a longer prison sentence. But if one ratted out the other and confessed while the second one still denied the crime, the confessor went free and the denier got the longest prison sentence of all. The advantage here is in cooperating and getting the shorter term. But there could be a bigger advantage to being selfish and being set free altogether. The changes the scientists made took these scenarios farther, and they studied it in an evolving population with many players who repeated the exercise many times with different people. They report that this more closely resembles what happens in nature. The higher payoff of success is the ability to pass on one's genes and wisdom to the next generation. Their results show that in the long term, selfishness didn't work as well as being generous. Those who defected and confessed over time tend to suffer more, versus those who cooperated and were generous. This provides mathematical evidence of an evolutionary advantage to generosity, and not just the existence of good karma. Another study similar to the prisoner's dilemma, but proving the negative side of the issue, is the public goods game, as reported by Steve Pinker in his book, The Better Angels of Our Nature. Each player in this game can contribute money toward a pool. The money is then doubled and divided evenly among all the players. In real life, an example of this might be fishermen who chip in for a harbor lighthouse, or business people who combine their earnings to hire security. The best outcome for everyone in the game would be if everyone contributes the maximum amount they can afford. But the best outcome for an individual is to stint on their own contribution and profit from others' contributions. However, in the long run, those who took this route were worse off than before, as others began to follow their lead, contributions dwindled, and everyone was worse off. Again, the study showed that selfishness didn't work as well as being generous. Mr. Pinker explains how Darwin's survival of the fittest concept does not really apply to the most successful of species. The species that work together to accomplish a task, such as finding food, building a safe place to shelter, protecting each other from enemies, are much more successful over time than those who are constantly in competition with one another. And as an outgrowth of this, generosity actually is greatly beneficial to the ones who show it. Now, people must intuitively understand all this. The concept of generosity has been around for millennia, probably as long as people have been evolving together. It has been valued and taught by most, if not all, of the world's religions and cultures in one way or another for one reason or another. It is universal. As Unitarian Universalists, we draw wisdom from many sources, so it's lucky that they agree on such a major value. I would like to take a look at some of these religions from which we draw our values. Jose Hamde, in Simple Living, explains how generosity is viewed in one Native American culture. He says, "We used to say you could tell if a person was an authentic Native whether or not she had a red heart. A red heart had to do with whether the heart had blood from being massaged with good works, especially sharing." Martin Brokenleg of the Lakota community provides this perspective. "We were taught much about generosity in my Lakota society because it was so molded into our social system. For example, if you were visiting someone and you openly admired a possession of theirs, they would probably give it to you. Giving this way would make them happy. Of course, real giving entails sacrifice. If it doesn't cost you something, it is not generosity. Thus, if I were to give away the necktie that Aunt Mildred gave me last Christmas, the one I was never going to wear in public, it would not be generosity, it would be recycling." Christianity seems to share this view. Jesus showed favor to an old woman who gave all she had, versus a rich man who gave a lot, but barely affected his store of wealth. Jesus said it was easier for a rich man to go through the eye of a needle than to get into eternal heaven. Judaism too preaches about generosity. The Hebrew word for charity is from the root tzedek, which means justice. The Torah teaches it as an obligation, a natural part of our humanity, not just charity. To be generous is a noble pursuit, and one is obligated to tithe 10%, in addition to leaving the gleanings of the harvest for the poor. When I was growing up, I was taught that giving 10% of your take-home money, which was my allowance at that time, was considered appropriate and generous. still strive for that now. Buddhism teaches that the first training Buddha gave everyone was the practice of giving. He taught that the practice of generosity is the most basic way to experience freedom. Happiness and inner calm grow when fed by generous acts. In Pali, the language used in the earliest Buddhist texts, the word for generosity is chaga, meaning both the underlying spirit of giving and also letting go, relinquishment. It helps one to lay down burdens, to not grasp things so tightly. Sharon Salzberg quotes the Buddha as saying that no true spiritual life is possible without a generous heart. Generosity allies itself with that inner feeling of abundance, the feeling that we have enough to share. We experience joy in forming the intention to give, the actual act of giving, and in the recollection of the fact that we've given. The Pali language is also used by Hindus, and the word for giving is dana. Dana is taught to be about much more than simply writing a check or making a donation. According to SouthernDharma.org, it's about living in love and trust and connection rather than self-centered fear and separation, opening our hearts to give as we have received, creating a world of abundance rather than a world of scarcity, and honoring our oneness and connection. Ultimately, dana as a value and as a practice is about the kind of person you want to be and about the kind of world you want to participate in creating. Islam encourages the practice of generosity, so much so that it is embedded in one of the 5 pillars of Islam, the obligatory charity known as zakah. In Arabic, the term zakah literally means purification of the heart. However, it is also the payment from surplus money of an obligatory charity designed to provide for all the needy members of the community. It is a fixed, calculable amount. There's another form of generosity in Islam called sadaqah. Linguistically, sadaqah means truthfulness, and some scholars have described it as the heart being truthful to its creator. Anything given generously with the intention of pleasing God is sadaqah. Sadaqah can be as simple as a smile, helping an elderly person with their groceries, or clearing objects from the road and the path. As with the Native American Lakotas, generosity does not lie in giving away something that has no value to you, but in giving freely from the things we love and need. Confucius did not neglect to teach about generosity either. He characterized the virtue of virtues, gen, as a sense of dignity of human life, a feeling of humanity towards others, and self-esteem for yourself. He once said, if you can practice these 5 things with all people, you can be called gen. Courtesy, generosity, honesty, persistence, and kindness. Most humanists would agree with this, probably. According to Reading.com, humanists believe that only humans can provide a solution to human problems, and therefore generosity is key. Key to sharing our ideas, our solutions, and our time and resources. As I think about all of these beliefs and cultures teaching and valuing generosity, I have to wonder, how can we be in such agreement unless it is a basic human value or moral? Now, with science providing us actual verifiable data about the importance of generosity as well, I've come to feel validated for a belief I've had about the whole point of life. It doesn't matter how much stuff you have. Ultimately, those things just don't hold a lot of importance. The point of life is to make things better in some way, somehow, for some being. Generosity helps everyone, the one giving and the one getting, and allows a little more happiness to spread in the world. Your time, your skills, and your money are very valuable, but to be happy, you must share them. To ease the suffering of another being, or to help someone be just a little bit happier, that is why I am here. I have always believed this, though I have not always been able to put it into words. Of course, generosity is not always easy. It requires us to push past a feeling of reluctance, because we sometimes want to keep the good things for ourselves with whatever justifications we can devise. And sometimes, some of us feel that if we give too much, we will be taken advantage of by others. No one likes to be played for a fool. But the few selfish people who might do this, who might see generosity as a weakness, are in the minority. And I do believe that they are generally unhappy. They just don't understand how generosity is good for you, good for the universe, and good for the person receiving the generosity. So while I don't just keep giving to someone who's betrayed my trust, I also don't just stop giving. Public speaker Paul M. Gerard Jr. states, "Do you really want to be happy? Everyone says yes, but the gateway to happiness makes some of us frown. The gateway to happiness is giving to others." He quotes the Dalai Lama, "If you want others to be happy, practice compassion. If you want to be happy, practice compassion." Mr. Gerard suggests we try it, and we will see what some call karma, the law of cause and effect. For every action, there is a reaction. Let's make sure the reactions to our actions are good ones. In closing, I am asking all of you to continue, for the benefit of yourselves, our community, and our world, to be as generous as you can when you are considering your participation here at Westside. We can do so much if everyone is generous with our time and our money. Please think about how you can give and create a community here that is a wonderful example of what generosity can accomplish. Danny Thomas said, "All of us are born for a reason, though all of us don't discover why. Success in life has nothing to do with what you gain in life or accomplish for yourself. It's what you do for others. That is the whole point of life for me, and I will keep trying." Thank you. As we rise in body and spirit, our closing hymn will be number 121, and we'll just sing the first two verses.